Welcome to Consult for Kids lessons. You have experienced Consult for Kids minis and modules, so you may be wondering, what is the difference between a lesson and what I already know? Lessons are longer than both minis and modules, so as a result, we are able to explore a topic more in depth. Lessons provide you with more content to help you understand how to put the information into action. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Big Three, a lesson for program leaders with Cindy Zandis.
Foundational truths, just the two words themselves, tell us that this is not just any old thing. Truth means something that's real. No matter what perspective we're coming from, no matter which way we're looking at it, it's the truth. It's the true north. It's foundational because it's basic, and it's truthful because it's accurate. And so when we look at foundational truths for people who work in the after-school industry or any other industry, they're really relatively straightforward. It's important that you understand that there are three foundational truths that are going to be utilized in every aspect of your job. They need to be in your mind. You need to be thinking about it so that when you interact with others, when you are working on a project, when you're meeting kids or their parents for the first time, that you remember these things so that as you move forward, they provide you with solid bedrock of how you can do an exemplary job. So there are three foundational truths. The first one is relationships. And that is more than just the social contract that we all have with one another that allows us to travel on the freeway and everybody uses their blinker to change lanes. That's certainly one sort of relationship, but the relationship that we're going to talk about in foundational truths is that relationship you build with children, with youth, with their families, with your colleagues, with other people that you come into contact with. The second foundational truth is about formal communication. It's not that we don't communicate with people often and do that informally at the water cooler when we're getting a soda. But formal communication means doing it in an intentional way so that you can share information or insight or ask questions and get feedback. The third foundational truth is acknowledgement. Acknowledgement is needed by everyone. Sometimes people will say, oh, well, I don't need a pat on the back, or I don't need to be thanked. And while that may be true, it makes all of us feel better when we have been acknowledged that we've made a difference, that we've made a contribution, that we have been a value add to the process. So let's take a look at each one of these separately. The first one is relationships. Relationships are more than just being able to say hello, goodbye. They are an investment. They are an investment in people, and in return, their investment in us. To build a relationship, it really takes three things. And the first thing is time. The second thing is care. And the third thing is belief. And I want to talk with you about the importance of each one of those. I want to start with time. People seem to intrinsically know that what is important to someone else is what they spend time on. And a lot of times we think, as we're preparing a lesson, perhaps, for working with children, that, well, we're doing that for them, so somehow that's going to be spending time with them. And really, it's not time for them, it's time with them that is so critical when you're building a relationship. There is a song that some of you may have heard, and it's called Cats in the Cradle. And it's a saga of a father who is so excited about the birth of his son. And as the song progresses forward, the son wants the father to spend time with him. And the father says, can't do it today. I'm busy. I've got things to do. I'm working. I'm making a good living so that you can have all of these opportunities. And constantly puts the son off. As the song progresses, the father gets older and the son becomes a man. And now the father's retired and he has plenty of time on his hands. And he asks the son, hey, son, can you spend some time with me? And the answer is, don't have time, Dad. I'm busy. I'm working. Maybe later. And what this song tells us is the importance of not spending time for people, but time with people, and investing the energy that we have in them and building that relationship and getting to know them and valuing who they are. So time is incredibly important when you're building relationships. The second part of building a relationship is care. And care isn't about doing for people. It's not about you cleaning up after the child so that the child can get out to play a soccer game. It is about taking care that the child has plenty of time in the way you've scheduled things to clean up after themselves, so that you are taking care that there are not roadblocks in the way of their own performance. It's looking ahead, it's planning, it's being preventative, so that what you're doing is taking care that things have every possibility of going well. There's a movie, Independence Day, and some of you may have seen it. And at the end of the movie, the president has taken to the air because he used to be a bomber pilot, and they're trying to get rid of the alien ship, and nothing is working. And so the president says onto his microphone, "Is there anyone out there who has a bomb for this, to bomb this alien ship?" And Randy Quaid's character, who's been the doofus of the entire movie, says, "I'm coming, Mr. President." And the president says something at that point which I think really is symbolic of taking care of people. What he says is to the few remaining pilots that are in the air with him, "Come on, boys, let's plow the road." And when you take care of people, whether that be young people, whether that be your colleagues, whether that be school day folks, what you're doing is plowing the road to be sure that any landmines or obstacles have been removed, so that the person who's coming behind you, for whom you have cleared the way, can do what they need to do in the very best possible way. So that's what it means to take care. So first I'm going to build relationships with you, get to know you, spend time with you, and then I'm going to take care to be sure that you have every opportunity to be the brilliant person that you can become. The third piece is belief. And belief is incredibly important. I was talking to a young boy not too long ago, and I was commenting on how well he was doing on his homework. And I said, "Wow, that's really great. How come you're doing such a good job?" And he said, "Oh," and he points to his program leader and said, "She said I was smart, so I am." That staff member had communicated to that child that she believed in him. She felt like he could do the work. She knew he was smart. She knew he could stick to it, and she knew he could be successful. It is that kind of belief that we have to demonstrate when we are in the process of building relationships with people, that I am going to believe that your best day is yet to come, and that you have every possibility of unleashing the huge potential that resides in you. And so when I build those relationships through taking time with people, caring about them so that they can do their work and shine, and then I believe and I confirm with them over and over how positive I am that they can be successful, I will have really practiced and demonstrated my understanding of the first foundational truth, which is building relationships. The second foundational truth is about formal communication. And again, oftentimes we communicate with people on the fly. You see people doing that when they're walking down a hallway or when they go, "Hi, how are you?" but nobody really expects an answer. In fact, there are jokes about when somebody says, "Hi, how are you?" and the person goes, "Well, let me tell you, I have this, this, and this," and nobody really wants to hear that. So when we talk about formal communication, we are doing that with the intention of giving information and receiving information so that we can better serve and do the work that we need to do. So formal communication, first of all, needs to be very intentional. You need to be asking yourself, who needs to hear this information? Sometimes information isn't for everyone. Sometimes it's for some people but not others. So if you have a piece of information, who needs to hear that? And so you very intentionally think about that, and I would suggest that you jot their names down on a list, because sometimes it's really easy to forget a key person and later you think, oh my gosh, I can't believe I left so-and-so out of the loop. So it's really important for you to decide who you're going to communicate with. The second part of that decision is, how are you going to do it? Are you going to do it in a memo? Are you going to do it in announcements at a staff meeting? Are you going to make a PowerPoint? Are you going to show them a video clip? How are you going to communicate with them? Email? You have to make a decision about that. So if it's going to be a formal communication and it's going to be intentional, you have to decide who gets it and how are you going to do that. And then you need to decide what you're going to say. Sometimes we get so busy with giving people the background that we never get to the point. And by the time they've read the first 3 pages, they go, whatever. And so they don't really get to the point. So it's important that you message what you want to say up at the front, towards the beginning. Even if you need background, maybe you add a few sentences and then tell them where they can go to get more information. But it's really important that you do that. And then you have to answer the question, why am I going to communicate this? What is the result I expect out of this? Why do I think this person or that person needs to know this? So communication needs to be very intentional and thought out before you ever go forward with your plan of communication. The next thing is that it needs to be clear. And a lot of times we think we're clear. We use words like few or several or maybe. That's not clear to people. A few means what? A few of you need to call in. Is that 3 people? Is that 10 people? What is a few? So instead of using words like few and several and many and words that don't really specifically tell what you want, try and replace those with words that are not ambiguous, that are very clear about what is the intent of this communication as well as the content of this communication. And so I sometimes think about when I read a ballot initiative, and I am asking myself, if I vote yes, am I saying yes, I want this, or yes, I don't want this? And you don't want your communication to be like that. It's not about covering yourself. It's not about tricking anybody. It's about being very clear and concise. A third part of formal communication is that you do it often. A lot of times people think, well, I told them already. They don't want to hear me say it over and over again. I think it's really important that you understand that a lot of times people hear things and they forget them. They put them to the side because they have so many other things to do. So reminding them, and build that in with your first communication. Let people know, I'll be checking back in with you a couple times a week. 2 times a week. We don't want it to be too ambiguous. I'm going to be calling you. I'll be sending a follow-up email. Let them know what you're going to do so it doesn't seem like you're bugging them, and it will also make you make a commitment to communicate with them and to follow up and communicate often. So when you're communicating, it needs to be intentional, it needs to be clear, and it needs to be often. And when you do that, what you will be doing is practicing the second foundational truth, which is formal communication. The third foundational truth is about acknowledgement. Acknowledgement is something that says to another person, I appreciate not only what you do, but that you're in this space with me. Too often, we only compliment people when they've finished a big, long task. And that's not really what acknowledgement is about. It's not about saying you've made it to the finish line always. Maybe it's, gosh, I want to let you know that I am acknowledging the fact that you've taken some very concrete steps to move this project forward. Or I really appreciate the way that you have made every effort to communicate more clearly with me. So it's really about acknowledging that you appreciate not only what they do, but who you are. So a who you are sort of acknowledgement would be, I'm so glad that you're part of this team with me. You're a value add. You lighten the moment. It's important that you acknowledge that their presence is also important to you. So when you're honoring the contribution and you're taking care of small victories, one of the ways that you can think about acknowledgement might be in appreciation, which would be all of the thank yous, and those can be public as well as private. It might be in a note, it might be in an email, it might be in an announcement to the entire staff or the entire team that says, want to thank so-and-so for doing a great job when I was out the other day. And so it's really about saying thank you. it is really about demonstrating that you are appreciative of the contribution that they're making. The second part of acknowledgement is a little more formal. It looks like recognition. This could be the plaque, the certificate, at the end of the month, the award that you give, not to the youth of the month, but the mini youth of the month. Because if only one person can receive a recognition honor, that's really not so well received, because people will think, well, I deserve that as much as so-and-so. So be sure that you understand that it can be employees of the month. It can be children of the month. It can be multiple people that you recognize for a job well done, that you recognize for either steps on the way to a completion of a project or the completion of the project itself. So I just want to kind of wrap this up and just reiterate how important these three foundational truths are and how essential it is that they permeate every aspect of your interactions, both personally and professionally. And these three foundational truths are: number one, build relationships. Spend time, care for people, and believe in them so that they too can shine. The second is formal communication. Be sure that you're intentional, that you're as clear as you can be, and do it often. And expect that people want updates and want to be heard. And the third foundational truth is acknowledgement. Be sure to appreciate the work that people do, and be sure to recognize them in a more formal way with awards, certificates, or plaques. When you do that, what you demonstrate to people is that you understand that after school is a people business, and that's what is essential. We are all in this together, and as the team can come together and move forward as a team, you will discover that as these foundational truths are put into place, you will have a winning team every time. Thanks.